practice. So some of you who have got kids in schools who are doing kind of the anti-bullying stuff, they're being introduced to this talking piece as a way to give everybody an equal voice and to have a reflective pace. It's actually it's pretty cool. It's a multifaceted and profound. You just never know what people are going to say when they have the talking piece. But especially for those who are quiet and shy and struggling to find their voice, the talking piece offers the opportunity to share what's on their minds and heart. A talking piece can be anything as it could be a picture, and maybe it's a picture of your family, a picture of other families, anything that you can hold in your hand. It could be a baby rattle, could be a feather. When I started the practice of talking piece in my family, which is, again, something I learned outside the home and brought into the home. So when conflict happened in my home, I asked the kids to pick up something that's valuable for them, and let's sit down and have a circle. So it can be used to bring the group back when conflicts occur, and again, it's building tradition in your group. Next slide. What's really important when you're starting a group is that in creating, like Lisa was saying, the environment, the physical space, we really want to open it up to having the space have the ownership of the people who are in it. So it's really important to talk about agreements, agreements on the traditions, agreement with the group that you're going to do an opening statement or a poem or something, agreement about using the talking piece. If you get stuck or there's a conflict and you can tell that somebody's holding something or whatever, you could introduce the talking piece, or anybody could ask to introduce the talking piece to be able to resolve some conflict. It's important that they know how respect is given to each other and received. Some people can think that they're doing something very respectfully, but in multiple cultures, it may not be received as being respectful. So by having people really talk about what does respect mean to you, and what would my action be if I was to give this to you. Confidentiality is really very important. As you can imagine, our mutual self groups with parents coming in from all different situations and different walks of life, a lot of things can be talked about, and the one thing is that what's said in group stays in group. So if you're doing group and you've got family members or you've got neighbors or you're a small community where everybody knows everybody, that confidentiality piece is really important. And then again, how to deal with conflict. If it isn't the talking piece, then what do we do? How do we create that? But the most important thing is the safety of children. And one of the things that is a mandate for our organization, and anyone who is a facilitator would be a mandated reporter. And that needs to be introduced to the group in a way that's comfortable for you and comfortable for them. But basically, your main thing is the safety of children. And if you know that a family is going to be going home and there's going to be harm to that child, then you need to work with the parent or whoever brought that child to make sure that the safety of children is really first and foremost. And then ask the group for other things that they would like to add to their agreements, that they can again make this their space and make it comfortable for them. Okay, Lisa? Lisa, you want to take the next slide?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just talking. I was unmuted. Sorry about that. As Roxy was saying, with the confidentiality and the mandated reporting, when you're coming up with these agreements, they're the parents' agreements. And so the parents, they brainstorm around the agreements of the group. A lot of times, just a simple agreement of respecting others or not being judgmental. And a lot of times we ask if we don't give our opinions as much because, as we said, it's a mutual self-help. So we're leaning on each other and we're depending on each other. The mandated reporting, we ask well, our facilitators and our co-facilitators, once they receive that training, they are considered mandated reporters. And this is just for the safety and the well-being of children, just to make sure that children are safe, that if we hear something that may cause a child harm, just so parents know that we are obligated to report who's ever facilitating that group. And when parents come up with some of these agreements, as far as confidentiality, a lot of times parents are telling their stories, and sometimes they divulge very personal things. And so that confidentiality is very, very important as far as what's said in the group stays in the group. But we want to also say that if there's a resource that is shared within the group, it's okay to share a resource that may help another family. Next slide, please. Active listening. Active listening is very, very important when we're sharing and when we're listening to people that are talking and telling their stories. We want to be very supportive when we're listening, supportive in our body language to show that we are paying attention, that we are listening, that they do have our attention. Furthering any responses, head nods, or just affirming them that you are listening and that you do hear them. And sometimes you may have to reflect comments or questions and just clarify. I heard you say, or are you saying, just so they can clarify exactly what they're saying, and then that way they can know that you are really paying attention to what they're saying. Be curious. You know, ask questions to help them to tell their story, or to help them be more clear about what they're trying to say, or what they're trying to, what they would like for you to understand. And validate, validate someone's feelings or someone's behavior when they're when you're listening and when they're speaking. Some of the active listening skills would be ask questions with a question, or you can point out similarities. Focus on the positive. We focus on strength-based. It's about resilience. So you want to focus on the positive, and you want to build on people's strengths. And if you can, give feedback. But when you give that feedback, make sure it's positive feedback. Empathy. Sympathy goes a long way, but when you can actually empathize with someone and actually understand or have been there, it goes a long way. It helps a person to feel that they can trust you. It helps a person feel like they're not different from you. So empathy goes a long way. And a lot of times if you use open-ended responses, it helps a person to share more so than yes or no responses. So those are just some skills on active listening and just some things that you can be aware of when people are talking or telling their stories. Next slide, please. Supporting and strengthening families. If you could look at this, and there's a chat box on the side where you can type questions, answers, or comments. And I want you to just look at this picture and just, if some of you can just type, what is your first impression when you see this picture?
If you type it in there, then I will read them out for Lisa.
Yep, we'll give you guys a couple of minutes to type some things in, but we'd like to hear from you guys as far as your first impression, and then, as Barb stated, she'll read them out.
Dangerous. Someone said dangerous.
Dangerous.
Child is seeking attention. Overwhelmed mom. Someone said it looks like my house.
And we could just take maybe one or two more comments, if you
Despair.
will. Despair.
Someone said both parents are present and they have food. Disconnected family.
Okay. Okay, great. Now, a lot of those comments that I did hear, except maybe one or two, they wasn't really strength-based comments, and a lot of times that's what we see first, the negative or the not so positive risk factors. And so now I want you to take a look at this same picture, and I want you to put comments in that's strength-based comments. Can you find the strengths of this family? I did hear one person say both of the parents are present. That's a strength for a family. Can we get some more comments about strength for this family or strengths that you see in the picture?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking and you couldn't hear me. Some of the positives. They have a pet. The child has been working on a puzzle. Family has a space. Oh, they're moving really fast now. Family has a space to live. They have electricity. Mom is taking a break. Someone in the household is working. Child interacting with the father. Dad is working to provide for the family. They have toys, fruits and vegetables, games to help kids learn. Love of family because the pictures are on display. Hugs, basic needs are being met. Someone else said the family pictures, fresh fruit, relaxing together.
Yes, great. So you see, when we start to look at families from a different lens, from a different perspective, on that strength-based perspective, we start to see the positives, and we start to build upon those positives. As people were saying, there's food in the home. There's fruit, the dad is home. So there's a lot of strength-based that you can glean from this picture, but at first look, if you're used to looking from that perspective of risk factors or what's wrong with the family instead of that strength-based approach, and then that's all you will ever see. But if you start to look at the strength-based and supporting the families, then you can start helping the family to be resilient, and you can start seeing the resiliency in families. Thank you guys so much for all your comments. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Okay, in the next slide, we're going to have a little pause before we switch over. We're going to show you a video. And, what we've been really trying to portray is that we look at things through a different lens. And the work that we've been doing lately has been really focused on the research of adverse childhood experiences. And there was a study that was done, and some of you may know about that. But in that picture, you saw what was physical going on with the family. But oftentimes what we don't see is what sort of childhood trauma that the parents may have had experienced. And it's common that it has strong cumulative health and social implications. So through the ACEs study, what they have found is that there are indicators that have happened in the child's early life that gives them a stronger propensity to have later in life health issues. And so there's a video that was put together that has some testimony of some parents talking about their own ACE score or their ACE study. And in the very beginning, you'll hear some things about the science itself. So Barb, can you give me the screen? So the science is in the very beginning, so we want you to listen to that, because that kind of goes past pretty fast. But just sit back and enjoy.
Just so you're aware, there might be a small delay with the sound, and it might be a little bit hard to hear, but we've got it up as high as we can get it, just so you know.
Half of the 10 ACEs identified are abuse and neglect. The remaining 5 have to do with family challenges or issues. Research from across the United States has verified a direct link between these ACEs and health outcomes as an adult. This is not a new idea. However, research has provided us with overwhelming proof childhood trauma does cause serious impacts to both our physical and mental health. The more ACEs a child has, the stronger the risk of having serious health challenges later in life. At the same time, many people show remarkable resilience in recovering from childhood trauma, changing their life path toward health and happiness. The ACE study is a powerful tool for informing and educating youth and adults. It's a call to action for all of us. Now is the time to work together to raise awareness, build stronger support systems, and prevent childhood trauma.
When I reflect upon ACEs in my life, I look back at my childhood and I realize that a lot of those traumas that I had that we now call ACEs really brought me down a path where I had really struggled as an adolescent. I dropped out of high school, ran away from home, got pregnant. Every parent's worst nightmare.
I grew up in very family environment, also a very strict boarding school environment. I mean, Catholic boarding school, where everything was cut and dry. You know, you cross the line, no one ever asked you why you crossed the line.
I had a high number of ACEs. I had several things happen in my childhood that would qualify as ACEs. So I had that 4 or more kind of category. And all of a sudden it made me look back at my own experiences and think, oh, looking at my own parents, as parents, they both probably had a few ACEs and adverse childhood experiences in their history too. My father definitely. And I kind of looked at him as a parent who, he was definitely not a great father. But I also understood that he was probably being the best parent that he was able to be at the time, given how he grew up and what he had to go through as a child.
Growing up in a family that had experienced a lot of trauma together, there was a lot of emotional responses. We didn't talk about what those emotions do to us, or that they're normal, or that when you're angry you shouldn't be calling people names, or some of the other effects that emotions have on us. And when I found out about ACEs, what I found out was that I was normal, that other people that had the same experiences that I did made a lot of the same decisions. And I was able to really look at it as a part of the growing and healing process instead of a deficit or me being bad or me being broken.
It made me kind of reflect back on my parenting and what I did as a parent, what I maybe could have done differently. If I had had this information, what I might have done differently. And I think in particular with my oldest child, who is a product of my first marriage. So he went through a divorce. His father's an alcoholic. So I passed those, by making those choices, I passed those those adverse childhood experiences onto him?
Well, I have to look at my two daughters when they were growing up. And I wish I had not reacted in some of the ways that I had reacted towards some of their behaviors, especially with one daughter who questioned authority. And basically, to me, that meant she was misbehaving. I have to be more understanding about what they do, what they say, how they act. I become more tolerant of my grandchildren's behavior than I was before I heard about it. I tend to talk with them now and not talk at them, which is what I did with my daughters.
The message I want to give my kids is bad things are going to happen. It's how you deal with those bad things. Going over with them, okay, what happened? And how were you feeling before that happened? If you're angry, what can you do with those feelings?
There's a couple of things that I found that have been really important to building that resilience for my children. And one is that simple things like we eat dinner together or we plan activities together. So we're continuing to build our relationship. I also make a point of letting my children know what they're doing right. As parents, we want to teach them, and sometimes in the past I have used criticism to teach them. And I really found that I want my kids to grow and grow stronger. So I really started focusing on those positive aspects.
Having a community of people around them who love and care about them, that are giving them those messages that they are loved and cared for and are worthy of that love. So surround themselves with people who can be supportive. I know that for me, I had a couple of teachers, a school counselor, those people who maybe only said something to me once or twice, but they said it at just the right moment, just when I needed to hear it, that I could do something, that I was capable. And you never know who that person's going to be or how they're going to be part of your life.
I think the most important thing about learning about ACEs is it demonstrates to us that as parents, we don't have to be ashamed and we don't have to pass those ACEs on to our children.
Because I do feel like that knowledge of those experiences and what those long-term effects can be is powerful knowledge that you can then do something with.
We have to choose to do something different. We have to be intentional about making those changes because it won't happen on its own. I want to give my kids the best chance at succeeding in life, which means I have to do things different than my parents. So the choices that I make now are based on not what I was taught or what I'm afraid of, but what I've learned.
But first of all, people need to be, shall we say, need to be jolted, need to be awakened to, let's say, ACEs, and what has been transmitted, to our children, has to be transformed. And the transformation has to come from the parents.
Okay, Barb, I think you are going to take the realm again. Oh my goodness! Hang on. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Well, that was interesting. Is everybody still there?
Yep, I think we're here. We can hear
Yes,
you.
we're here.
Just a little bit of rock and roll thrown in there. So we now are looking at not only through a different lens of trauma-informed practice, it now gives us some words and some science to what we do every day, and helps us to move forward. So now we have to kind of really hang on to what is the kind of practice now that that follows the science. And so next slide. What we do in our groups is that we really emphasize protective factors, building upon the strengths of families. ACEs gives us the awareness of what has happened to us in our childhood, and toxic stress and trauma doesn't necessarily, everybody experiences some sort of trauma. It could be the trauma of child abuse. It could be the trauma of grandma dying and us not seeing grandma when we go back to grandpa's house. But trauma happens to all of us, but not always in a toxic sort of way. And whether we've grown up in a family where there is a lot of toxic stress or not, these protective factors are still things that really help to strengthen the families. They are parental resilience, social connections, knowledge of parenting and child development, and concrete supports in time of need, and children's social and emotional competence. These protective factors were presented to the field by the Center for the Study of Social Policy. And we're going to go through each one. Lisa and I will go through each one of them one at a time.
And let me just add as well that right here we have the 5 protective factors listed, but there is 6, and that 6th protective factor is the nurturing and attachment.
Right. Strengthening Families Illinois, this Strengthening Families approach and the protective factor framework has been, spreading throughout the country. And Strengthening Families Illinois added the 6th one, which was nurturing attachment. Thanks, Lisa, for that. So next slide. Parental resilience, and we don't go around asking a neighbor, how's your parental resilience today? But we might say, what do you do to bounce back from, a situation that has been difficult? So how do you keep yourself strong and flexible? There's a psychological health. Parents feel supported and able to solve problems. Oftentimes isolation keeps us from that, or shame or guilt. And so we can develop trusting relationships with each others and reach out for help. And we really feel that that is the foundation of Circle of Parents, is creating that environment. And also, I just want to let you know that we do a session called Parent Cafe to introduce all of these protective factors. And if you want information about how that works, you can connect with any of us at any time. So, Lisa, the next one.
Yes, and social connections. Everyone needs someone. Parents need friends, family, co-workers, the community. And having those social connections help parents to depend on and have better supports in their time of needs. The more social connection that you have, the more support that you have. So when you're going through certain needs, you have someone that you can actually count on and depend on. And like I said, your parents, your family, your friends, your neighbors, all those can be considered as your social connection. Your community are social connections you can develop through your social connections through your community. It does not have to necessarily be a person. It could be an agency that could be a social connection for you as well. I.e., Minnesota Communities Caring for Children, our Circle of Parents group could be a social connection for a lot of parents. Next slide, please. Knowledge of parenting and child development. Parents learn what to look for at each age and how to help their children reach their full potential within their own cultural identity. So knowing the behaviors of your child at the stages throughout their lives can help you when the child may be struggling or having a challenge at a particular stage in their life. When I think of this particular protective factor, a lot of times I think about within my culture or my community. A lot of times children get spanked for bedwetting, and we know that that is a natural part of their development. So if parents have that knowledge and know that at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that's a natural part of their development to possibly wet the bed at night, then they may not get spanked. Instead, they may put in, precautions to help them. They may put on pull-ups at night, or may not give the child something to drink after, 8 o'clock. But just knowing the natural development of your child's life can help with resilience as well, because if your child is having some challenging behaviors, then you're more apt to go out and look for help for that child. Next slide, please. You want to take that one, Ms. Roxy?
Sure, I can. This is concrete supports, and we all need help sometimes. No one raises children in isolation. And but when you need the help, you need the help. You don't need to wait for 3 months to get an appointment if you're homeless. If your children don't have food, they need to eat. And so concrete supports really is an action, a call to our community, a call to the parents that it's not a weakness to ask for help. It's a strength. Once you know that you've got an issue in your life and you need to work on resolving it or whatever that is, then you can begin to start moving forward. So with Circle of Parents, we really ask our groups to have at least 3 resources. Many of them have much more, but that the people who are leading the groups really understand where their shelters are, where their food shelves are, where people can go to get a job. If transportation is an issue, where they can go to get some support for that. Services with parents with mental health or domestic violence or substance abuse. And then specialized services for children. If the child is, defined as having some sort of special need, where is it that you can go get that help? And oftentimes with Circle of Parents, when you've created that mutual self-help, a whole group of parents sometimes knows a whole lot more than a lot of agencies do, because sometimes we get caught up in kind of a silo or just being the expert on the service that we provide. So concrete supports are really important, and that parents know where to go and are able to get things when they really need them. Next slide. Social and emotional learning, which this slide really ties to ACEs. And, we are what we know. I mean, if you were brought up in a home where there were lots of things going on, that's what you know. When you go to raise your own children, those are the tapes that you have. But oftentimes we don't recognize emotional learning, and even kids in school, they test for reading and writing and arithmetic and that sort of thing. But who's really paying attention to the emotional learning of that child? Sometimes kids are, overactive, and so they have a lot of social skills, but what's going on inside of them? So as Lisa said, in knowing about the normal development of a child in the stages where they are, it creates more positive interactions between the child and the parent. Traumatic experiences, again, and, it may not be a tragic experience, but it's traumatic. Somebody calling you fat or ugly or, you know, 4 eyes or something like that. And those are things that kids often can internalize and don't really look at what their emotions are around that. So, and especially in communities that are immigrants or refugees to this country, the emotional learning and social learning is really, really, really important for them to understand the norms of our culture and to be able to reflect the norms of their cultures. So next slide. So the protective factor learning is something, yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that we don't want to leave out that nurturing and attachment protective factor either. And just to touch a little bit on that nurturing and attachment, you know, the infant brain, it develops best when they receive affection and nurturing from their parents and their caregivers. And this is important for their healthy physical and emotional development throughout their childhood. So if they lack that nurturing and that attachment at a very, very early age, when they're infants to, small toddlers, it affects their brain development. So we just want to say that nurturing and attachment, it is very, very important to your child's brain development. Thank you, Ms. Roxy.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And, you know, we only had an hour for this webinar, so we have a whole bunch of information that we could present to you. And we're a co-learning organization, so we learn from our community learns from us. So one of the opportunities we wanted to bring to you is that there is a National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds, and this is an organization that really focuses on the prevention of child abuse or child maltreatment. And they have provided an online training course that's free. You don't have to pay anything for it. And after you're done, you get a certificate of completion. But it really goes into the strengthening families and the protective factor framework in a number of ways and in a number of settings. So we just add that to you so that what we learn gets shared with you. Okay, next slide. So the end of the webinar here, we're really going to give you information about developing Circle of Parents, and we're not going to go into depth because there's a whole lot of depth. But hopefully we can pique your interest enough that you would think that having a Circle of Parents in your community would really bring an asset and a strength. But we develop circles either through an agency partner or through a community partner. And what an agency partner means is an existing organization that would like to have a Circle of Parents as a part of their programming. So for instance, we have these Catholic charities in St. Paul. Some homeless shelters run Circle of Parents. So it becomes embedded within the organization. Organizations adapt to the sort of frameworks that we that we promote, such as the protective factors and the ACEs. We don't provide a curriculum. All of our groups are the topics come from the parents themselves, and we develop some frameworks so that those topics can fit into those frameworks, such as the the protective factors. So I won't go into all of this. We will be sending you a copy of all of our handouts, but a community partner is a little bit different. It's a group of citizens that come together. They're very grassroots. They decide that they would like to do this. They provide a group of people from the community that will become the advisory team, which provides leadership and guidance, also provides the dollars for running the groups. They get the space, they do the recruitment of the volunteers, and all of that sort of stuff. They establish their own budget and fundraising plan. We provide technical assistance to that, and they do their own network and referral source. and decide when their groups are going to meet and where their groups are going to meet. So 2 different ways, an agency partner and community partner. And we will talk a little bit more on the next slide and then open it up to questions. So Lisa, you want to take the next one?
Sure. And our training and technical assistance. We provide a lot of the training and the technical assistance for the Circle of Parents, and it's free to you. We don't charge for any of our training or our TAs. Our staff work closely with each community to provide the support from the start up to the evaluation of the Circle of Parent group. We have the advisory committee training. We do some training around how to start an advisory committee. We do training around the chapter agreements and the shared leadership. And our shared leadership model is simply everyone's a leader. There's no big I's or little U's. Parents have the same autonomy of the group. And so we really thrive off of that shared leadership model. Parents feel a lot more comfortable, and they trust a lot more when they feel like they're also in the lead. Volunteer recruitment strategies and any job descriptions. We do our background checks. We do a background check annually for all facilitators, co-facilitators, for the Circle of Parents group or our child programming. And when we do these background checks, it's just because it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids' safety and their well-being, and we just want to make sure that we know who's watching out for the kids or who's taking care of the kids. Fiscal services and liability insurance. If we're your fiscal agent, we carry that liability insurance. And also we do evaluations because we want to know if what we're doing is really making a difference. So we do evaluations of the groups. We do evaluations of the facilitators. And so and as I stated, just so that we'll know what we're doing is working, and that if we need to enhance or change anything to make it more equitable for certain groups, then we can make that transition as well. The training is voluntary. You're not mandated to do the facilitation training. You're not mandated to do the children's program training or our parent leadership training, but they are there for you free upon request. Next slide, please. Here is our regional map, and it has all of our staff and which region that they are coordinate. We have Miss Roxy, and we do apologize that a little bit is cropped off at the top, but we were just trying to make room for the whole map. So you can see that Miss Roxy is central and northeast, and you can also see the counties in which she directs. You also see Barb, which is in the southern region, and you can see in purple all of the counties that she directs. We have Mary Weaver as well, and I apologize she's not on the call today, but she's also a coordinator, and she coordinates the Northwest region, which is in green, so you can see all of the regions that she coordinates. And then I'm in the 7-county region, the yellow, and so I coordinate those 7 counties. And we go out and we introduce our preventive initiatives to these different regions, along with our Circle of Parents group, in hopes of, creating new Circle of Parents group and supporting the Circle of Parents group that we already have active. I'm going to move to the next one. And here we have all of our Circle of Parents staff again, and just a more detailed contact information on how you can contact each one and the areas in which each one directs. And so if you in the northeast part of the state, and then Roxy Foster will be probably the best person to help you get a Circle of Parents group started or come in and support you with how to get it going.
I think we want to take this time for questions, and we'll be able to answer. Also, we give you our contact information, so if you're in one of our specific regions, you can call us directly if you want, if you have more questions. But why don't we open it up for questions? You can put your questions in the chat box, and then Barb can read them out to us.
The first question I had was to share the website again for Children's Trust Fund, and I'm putting that in now, so everyone should be able to see it in your chat. But I have to look at it again, so Roxy, I'm sorry, I have to go back up there.
Oh, just put it up.
Oh, right there. Also, we will, when we send the evaluation for this webinar, Kate will send a PDF of Roxy and Lisa's slides. So you will also have this information that way. I know that the video was hard to hear. We did the best I could. I'm not a great driver at doing this, so I'm sorry.
That address too is on the PowerPoint.
Right. So they will be able you will be able to go there yourself on your own computer and see that, because it's a really good video.
And I just wanted to say that for the online training for the protective factors, you do get certificates after you complete each training, each protective factor training. So at the end, you will have a cumulative of 5 or 6 certificates.
There aren't any questions coming in right now, but if you are in any of these regions, go ahead and call that person who coordinates that particular region, and we will all be very happy to help you answer some questions or help you with development. I'm getting, thank you very much. Thank you. Here's one. I have training. I've had the training to facilitate parent cafes. Do parents participate in those before being in a circle of parents?
Yeah, they don't have to. I mean, they could participate in them. Oftentimes, what we suggest is that if your community is starting a new circle group, that you use the Parent Cafe as kind of a recruitment tool. If you've been trained in the Parent Cafe training or have had an experience, what you find is that you get people talking, and talking about parenting issues just isn't really a common thing to do in our society, which is really kind of sad. But then to be able to promote when the Circle of Parents will be starting, and so you've got that whole group of people who've come to your cafe that could, become participants in the circle. But cafes and circles can be standalone.
Do you want to give a little information on cafes if people aren't familiar with what that is?
Yeah. A parent cafe is it's modeled after the World Cafe, so it's a process that's being used globally to bring people together and have informal conversations about things that matter. And we think the protective factors matter. So it's very informal. It's usually set up in an informal environment. We recommend that childcare is provided, maybe a light meal if it's in the evening, and then basically people sit at rounded tables or clusters of 4 or 5 people in a group, and they answer questions that are related to the protective factors. Again, we don't use words like parental resilience. We might say, how do you bounce back from really hard times? And then people they separate out and they go to different tables with different groups of people so that their perspective is coming from a different way. Some of the things that are outcomes from the cafe is we always do what we call a harvest. We put what's being said at the table up on flip charts. Those can go to the group that's asked us to come out and do the cafe. They can often use those as nuggets of wisdom from their community. Some of the things that happen that are you just kind of don't know what's going to happen. We've had some grandparents parenting their grandchildren, and they lived just a half a mile from each other and didn't realize it. So they were making social connections. We've had teen dads say, "I'm going to spend more time with my baby now that I understand how important that is." I mean, it just really is. It's a process that allows kind of aha moments. Is I guess how I can explain it anyway. Anybody can add more.
You did a great job.
We have people who are trained, and whoever asked the question may have been trained in some of the cafe trainings that we were doing around the state a couple of years ago. But if you want us to come in and do a cafe, we do provide the trainers. And there's no charge for that, but we ask you to co-host it for us. So you would find the place and do the recruitment and provide the child care, provide the food, and we'd come in and help you set it up. A lot of our trainers are parents themselves, so it's kind of a peer-to-peer model, which is really always great.
Is there anyone in particular they should contact, or just particular to whatever region they are in? Contact that coordinator.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, whatever region they're in. I think.
I'm not seeing other questions, Roxy. Thank you very, very much, Roxy and Lisa. A lot of information, very good information, and spreading that support across the state.
Mm-hmm. Thank you too, Barb. Great job.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Barb, and thank everyone else for participating.
Yep. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.